my gamers, all my gotcha gamers. So, the Game Awards just released the best mobile game category, and there are two games now. I'm going to be completely honest. Whether these two games are going to win this category, I couldn't actually say. I would actually bet that they would not, because Balatro is on here, and that is up for, I think, Game of the Year. It's up for a lot of awards, so it'll be kind of hard for these two to actually win like the actual best mobile game. But I've actually wanted to sit here and talk about why I think one would win over the other. So I'm going to give a lot of my... I've been sitting here writing down a list, right, of what I think are positives and negatives about both Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone Zero. And I figured I would write off my list, tell you guys how I feel about these games, and then give you my opinion at the end. Now, you guys can agree, not agree. You're more than welcome to tell me in the comments whether I am dumb or not. But, you know, let's get into it. First, I want to talk about the Wuthering Waves, right? Woo-wah, baby, the wee-wee. Now, let's talk about Wuthering Waves negatives. Chat, I can't lie to you, and I won't sugarcoat it. Win God Fist. The launch of this game was actually terrible. I can't tell you exactly. I can't put into words just how awful the launch of this game was. Now, with this game does have a good story, but one thing I did want to say is, as I'm playing more of these patches, right, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4, I gotta say, I think that the story really did kind of peak. Or not 1.4, 1.1. I'm like listening and playing 1. All these other stories. 1.2 was just a filler patch. 1.3 was a little confusing, but I just think that all these patches just don't really hit as hard as 1.1. I'm gonna be completely honest. Another thing that I don't like for this game is that everything costs way too much resin and credits. I think going for a boss is like 60 and you get like 240. It's like, yeah, you get a lot of resin at the beginning, but if you get a lot of resin but everything costs a lot, it kind of cancels itself out, right? It's not really gonna get you're not really gonna get the most bang for your buck if they're just like, oh, everything, you get 1,000 resin, everything costs 500 resin each. All right, well, then it's just kind of wasting your time. And another thing is that, man, for anyone who has played the English dub, I think the English dub on release was actually pretty terrible. It was not good on release. From chapters, I'd say 1 through 5-ish, 1 through 4-ish, 1 through 4, 1 through 5. 1.1 saw some improvements from like the regular, like the girls with Yang Yang, Chisha, and Rover, but I think it really started to hit its stride later. I think in the beginning it was definitely pretty rough to listen to, and trust me, it was rough. And another thing I have a complaint about is these patches, and I don't care who tells me this and who tells me that it's not, and I'm just trolling. Bro, these patches are just way too long. These patches last like until the heat death of the universe. Why does every patch like 50 years long? Especially when the patch where we have like at 1.4 we have the Simoir quest, right? That's maybe an hour and a half. We have Camelia's character quest. That's another hour and a half, and that's it. That's it. That's your patch for the next 50 days, I think is what it is. It's pretty long, and for that, I don't know. It seems like there should have been at least a little bit longer. I thought Camelia's quest would have been better as a main story quest, because I don't know. I just wish we had a little bit more time with Camelia. The quest for 1.4, the main one for the event, although it is just an event quest, I did enjoy it, but I just kind of wish, you know, it wasn't that short. Also, the ecosystem, in my opinion, I think the ecosystem definitely needs a rework. And one thing that if I were to rework it, one thing that I would definitely do is make the echoes that are at level 0 be able to be used as XP. Every other game lets you do this, but for whatever reason, at Wuthering Waves, you cannot do that. If your echo is at 0 XP, you can re-roll it into something that might not even be what you want, but you cannot use it as XP. So you have a bunch of pieces that you're not even going to use, and for some reason you just can't do it. You can level it up, but it's like if you don't have anything that's XP, it's just not gonna work, right? Like, what's the point? Now, for late games, we could talk about the late game stuff. But for one thing that I don't like is I think the tower diversity, it just feels like bullet sponge type thing. You know, it's like a bullet sponge type beat. It's okay, right? But it just feels like it could have been made better with how this game is and designed in the way, I don't know. I just felt like there could have been more than just bullet sponge. Also, I have not met anyone who has actually used the co-op. I used the co-op and I thought the co-op was really, really buggy in my opinion. But, you know, that's enough going hard on this game. Chat, it's time to glaze because we're about to do the positives. And one thing I gotta tell you that this game does, even though it peaked at 1.1, the story is great, and narrative-wise, it is amazing in the way that they tell it, right? Now, the voice acting might be a little rough in the beginning, but once you get into the later patches, the way that the characters convey their emotions, I think it's great, right? I love 1.1. The Shorekeeper's quest, though it wasn't as good as 1.1, I loved it. Camelia's character quest, I kind of, you know, I said what I said about it. I liked it. It was a good time. It felt, it was a little, she felt like she was, you know what I'm saying? You know if you play it. Anyways, the characters, in my opinion, I feel like these characters really feel unique in the way that their kits work and the way you can use their kits. I liked using these characters. Every character I just want to build and, you know, have them in a state where they're able to be used, because I think that everyone's viable, to be honest. I think everyone's viable in their own way. Now, I also think that the character designs are beautiful. I'm talking about like Changli, Yin Lin, Camellia, Shorekeeper. For anyone who is a man enjoyer out there, Xiangling Yao looks really sick. The General Jian, he looks really, really cool. Calchero, he looks like Sephiroth. So these characters have had a lot of details put into them, and I think that it really pays off in the end. I think these characters just look amazing, right? Now, something that I didn't really appreciate until Shorekeeper was just how amazing this music can really be. Shorekeeper's music, it's just on a whole nother level. I loved it. I absolutely loved Shorekeeper's music. I kind of wish that the intro to the game was looped a little better, so it doesn't just die off and, you know, go silent for a few seconds, because that intro music sets the tone of the game beautifully when you go into like a somber world like Wuthering Waves. I loved it. I also think that the world design was amazing, and on top of the world design being great is the exploration tools, right? There is no stamina to run around, and you have like a grappling hook, you have poles to show where things are, they've implemented a gun tool, so if you don't use Chisha like me, you don't have to worry about all that. It feels good to get around the map and walk. Like, nothing feels too far away. Sometimes I don't even use the TPs because I know how close it is. I'm gonna run into enemies on the way over there. I'm gonna fight them. I'm gonna have a good time. So I definitely think that moving in this game it's great, dude. I also love Kuro Games as a company. Now, I haven't played PGR, but just from my experience with Wuthering Waves, this company definitely feels like it's just always listening, dude. Every patch, not even every other patch, every single patch is just a devs listen patch. I mean, I love it, dude. And they are always compensating for mistakes that they made. And here comes to my next point. They give out free 5 stars. And they don't just give out regular free 5 stars, which they do. They absolutely do. They give out free unique 5 stars, which I think are busted. Xiangling Yao is actually an insane character, and he works so well, and we got him for free. So that's why I think that this game, on top of all that, I think it's a very, very free-to-play friendly game. Now, one thing that really, really matters to me, as someone who used to be super tryhard in games, I like that the combat leaves a lot of skill expression, right? So every character is viable in their own way, as long as you're able to dodge and know the mechanics and, like, what do you call it? Any kind of, what is it? Animation cancel for your character. You definitely are going to get a lot out of your character. And that's what I like. I think also that this game it's positive. This is a positive for me. I think the end games are pretty challenging when it comes to like holograms. That in itself, I think that I thought that was great. I thought holograms were really cool. I need to go through all of them though. I need to go through a little bit more. I've done a few. Those are just like the positives and negatives that I thought for Wuthering Waves. So now it's time to get into Zenless Zone Zero. And man, I don't know. I didn't have as many negatives as I thought it was going to be. One thing, first things first, I know some people might not like this, but hear me out. I think narratively, which means if you were to write this down and just read it, I think Zenless Zone Zero probably has the worst story of the top of the big four. We'll get into all that later. I just think that, you know, Zenless Zone Zero story is not that great if you were to like read it out, right? If you were just to examine the story, it's not that great. Now, I also think that this game would benefit a lot more from open world. I still feel like, even though I've gotten used to it and I love playing this game, I still feel like it would have gotten a lot more out of an open world experience, or at least some kind of open world something. You know, you're kind of limited to walking around in certain areas. I'm just saying it would have benefited a little bit more. Everything in this game is so expensive. I don't know why. All the Denny's, all the XP, ironically, is not, but Denny wise, you're losing all your money when it comes to leveling up your characters and leveling up materials and traces and your discs and all that. It just feels like it costs a lot of Denny's, and we're not really getting like a lot of Denny's to compensate for that, right? Now, one thing that I will say about this game, unlike Wuthering Waves, you know, we gotta be real. This game is not very free-to-play friendly. You're not going to get a lot of enjoyment out of this game until you get a 5-star. And this leads me to the next point. This was advertised to have a lot of rewards, but a lot of it didn't go into limited banners, and a lot of it went into like, not, what is it called? The boupons. Like it went into boupons and regular perma wishes, which are okay, but like the perma wish characters don't really hit as nicely as the limited banner characters, of course, because they want you to buy these characters. So, you know, that's kind of, I give them a hit on that. The TVs were absolutely abysmal. I hated using TVs. I mean, they're cool in other aspects, but as far as the main story, it stopped the main story and drew it to a screeching halt whenever they came out. Also, which this is something that I would have wanted in this game, there's no battle XP, or there's no battle co-op. Why is there no battle co-op? Why can't you go in battle in the fight like one of the domains with your friends? Like if I want to grind out Denny's, I can't have my friends with me to play with me. You know, all there is arcade, which, to be fair, it works, but you know, now that we have you know, ripped into this game, it's time to give it the positives it deserves. Which, number one, unlike Wuthering Waves, this game launched pretty much perfectly. No one had any problems. They didn't have a game that just launched and didn't work. This game on launch worked as intended. And of course, along with that, the English voice acting for this game was amazing at launch. You know, you talk about Nicole, Billy Kid, Nekomata, Corin, Ellen Joe, like all these characters that you meet up in the beginning. I thought they sounded amazing. The characters have such a silly character. They have such silliness to them that I love. Now, that also adds on to the story. Although this is narratively the worst story, it is probably told the best out of all of the big four in the way that it is conveyed with all the silliness and the animations and how everyone's so, you know, all over the place. I think that kind of elevates it to, I think, probably the second best. I kind of want to give it to, what's it called? I kind of want to give it to Honkai Star Rail is the best story, but Zenless Zone Zero, it just, the story and the way that they tell it, it just adds so much to it. It just adds so much life into the world. And on top of that, I think that the characters are just, I really like that the characters are designed in a way that really fits well into this world. And I also think that the characters are like, their designs are more streetwear-ish, which I really like. The characters have a different kind of design to them from, like, you know, when you go to Wuthering Waves, to Honkai Star Rail, to Genshin Impact, they all have a fantasy aspect to them. And Zenless Zone Zero has like a streetwear modern kind of design. In a way, I really like it. I think that the things in this game, man, I think that the characters, their personality, they really pop. The animations, they really pop. The Aboba pops, of course. Wait, what? I think that this game also has a different kind of feel to it. It's a very relaxing and chill game, you know. Your dailies consist of playing scratchers and drinking coffee and opening the story. Like, there's not much to it. It could just be a game where you just relax, which is a nice change of pace from where everything is like trying to end the world. You know, you're trying to save maybe a city block at this point. It just seems like a nice change of pace. You know, the patches are always filled with things to do. So you're not, although the patches aren't that long either. So the patches always feel like you're going to do something, right? It always feels like there's something to do. And although the devs did put in the TVs at the beginning, I did like how they did end up changing them and taking them out of the main story. So I think the story definitely flows better. But for the people who actually did like the TVs, they're putting the TVs back in on a separate game mode with stuff like that. So I really like that. So they're still listening to everybody. They're still trying to figure it out. And it seems like it's going to pretty much appeal to everybody, right? I think that the music as well in this game, just like with Wuthering Waves, it's not as like classical with piano and stuff like that. It's more upbeat and like it just gets you in the mood to play this game. And I really like it. Now, I think that the character building in this game, I think it's a lot easier than Wuthering Waves. Plus, you know, you can recycle discs into XP, which you can't really do in Wuthering Waves with the echoes. And yeah, so there's a lot you could do with that. I think there's a lot you could do without resin. You can do Shiyu defense. You can do Hollow Zero. You can do Infinite Tower. You can do Notorious hunts and stuff like that. So it seems like there's a lot you can do even when you don't have resin. So you can still play this game pretty well. And even though there's not a lot of co-op, all there really is the arcade. The arcade, from what I've played, it's worked pretty well. It's never really bugged out. Wuthering Waves, I've gotten lag and stuff like that for Zenless Zone Zero and their co-op. It's worked for me. It's only in the arcade, but it works for me. But yeah, those are kind of just some things I wanted to talk about. Now, to not keep you guys waiting any longer, if I were to give you which one of these two would win, I think I would have to give it to Zenless Zone Zero. It just made a little bit less fumbles than Wuthering Waves in a way that kind of put it on top. But that's not to say that Wuthering Waves didn't come back. Wuthering Waves, in fact, played the mid game pretty well. You know, they gave up a lot of kills in the early game, but they played back. They played front to back in these team fights. And I think that this game is coming along pretty well. I just feel like the story is lacking in ways that we were expecting from 1.1, right? But, I mean, 2.0, it might be coming soon, and I think that 2.0 will be their time to turn it around in a way that they launched this game in a way that it should have been launched from the beginning. So Wuthering Waves, maybe next year it'll come a little bit better, but for this year, giving it to Zenless Zone Zero. Balacho's probably going to win anyways, but, you know, we just got to hope for the best. I give it a Zenless Zone Zero. Chat, let me know how you guys feel. How do you guys feel about my points? How do you guys feel about anything? Comment, like, and subscribe, and I will catch you gamers in the next one.
Bring me down, get over nightmare.